Hi everybody. Have you ever thought about your thoughts? Have you ever thought how just daily thoughts hit up your mind every day? Have you ever thought how your daily thinking operations and processes are doing in order to interpret that world outside? More than 50% of people will have a no as an answer. And even some of people don't know that actually thoughts are the appearance of our actions, or our actions in our daily life situations are actually the results of our thoughts from the beginning. Playing seek and hide with your little daughter, tasting or eating lunch while showing you contentment so that for your wife not to be cross. And even giving up your mind while thinking how you're starving for a slice of pizza and how fantastic a slice of pizza can be. All those are daily actions that we do in our lives, and all those are actually the results of our thoughts from the beginning. So thoughts are everywhere, controlling every action in our life, which means you're controlling all our lives. I was at primary stage, and during my primary stage, I used to hate mathematics so much, how I hated numbers and how I hated mathematical operations. I was so slow at doing sums and solving mathematical operations. The worst scholar subject for me was mathematics. And my classroom colleagues used to do sums and solve mathematical operations smarter and quicker than I do. And they used to convince me that I am stupid. Once by once and time by time, session by session, I began to be convinced with their thoughts. I began to be convinced that I am stupid because they had thoughts about stupidness for me. Well, after I got convinced, I lived stupid. So what happened is that a bad negative thought about stupidness, I believed in it, so it transformed it to an action of being stupid. That's how thoughts can make actions. Well, time passed, and I was then at the secondary stage at my new school, Dakahlia High School, that changed my life. It was a Wednesday session. Actually, it was an English session recited by Mrs. Musa, and it was about types of intelligence. And for those who don't know how STEM students work, we are distributed in the classroom into groups. And every group collects a specific data related to the main topic or the main title of the session, which in this case are types of intelligence. So I had to make a report about all data collected from other groups. So I had to go to monsters and stars and to Hogwarts, nice names were they. So I collected a report from all data about types of intelligence. Then I started to read, and how stunned I got. It appeared actually and eventually that being so bad at mathematics doesn't mean I am stupid. There are types of intelligence. Mathematical intelligence is only one type, and there's also logical intelligence, musical intelligence, and I read that one, linguistic intelligence. That sounded familiar to me, and I googled it and found that actually linguistically intelligent people's characteristics are actually mine. To have the desire to learn new languages every day, to use new vocabularies and to make imaginary conversations, to speak with yourself and to use new vocabularies, to learn and to have the ability to memorize different vocabularies of different languages. All those characteristics were just mine. So it eventually appeared that I am not stupid, but I am intelligent. That shift in actions from being stupid to being intelligent was actually as a result of the shift in thoughts. I had a childhood-related bad negative thought about stupidness that changed my actions to stupidness. But when I decided to remove it that Wednesday and implement a new thought about smartness and intelligence, I began studying intelligence. So my life experience is a proof about how thoughts can control actions that are ours in order to control our lives and influence it positively or negatively. Well, actually, in fact, how thoughts are appearing every day in our minds and how they affect our life carries two main perspectives. The perspective of neuroscience and the perspective of psychology. Okay? That's where fantasy and reality are cooperating in order to charge to the main target, which is benefiting the human. Neuroscience is actually a big story about small bionic cells living in our body called neurons or nerves. Together, neurons are the building blocks of what is called the nervous system. And the nervous system consists of the brain, the spinal cord, and many peripheral extensions of neurons from the spinal cord and the brain in the shape of wires towards all tissues of the body, even towards the terminals, to fingers, toes, and hair. Well, neurons, which are forming the neural extensions, are actually having two types. Motor neurons, and they are part of those extensions only in the muscles, and they are hidden in the muscle. Their job is to move the muscle. and sensory neurons is the second type. Sensory neurons are the interface between the outer world and the body. They transform the external stimuli and effects in the outer world into chemical messages that the body can understand in order to make a response to making actions and, guess what, influencing our lives. Well, for instance, when you touch a spine in a cactus plant, finally, you will find that your hand is removed suddenly when you touch a spine in your cactus plant and your finger is harmed. What happened here is this an action or behavior. So a thought must be a leader to that action. So we have just to go deep down and see that thought, or what is that thought about. So if we just went deep down, we will find that sensory neurons transformed that pain thought. When you are harming your finger, you have a pain thought, a pain related thought, a thought about pain and harm. So sensory neurons transform that thought that you thought of pain, transform that thought into chemical messages that they carry through the neural web to the spinal cord. And imagine the spinal cord as a manager in the company who just know that enemies are on the gates, so he orders bodyguards to close the gates, and that's represented in spinal cord when it's ordering the motor neurons and sending messages to the motor neurons to move the muscle, so your muscle is removed. So that's an action. This actually was a result of a thought. You thought of pain, but your hand is removed, and that sometimes gets weird. You didn't think of removing your hand. You just thought of pain. You thought of pain only and didn't have the time to think of removing your hand. So how your hand was removed? That type of actions, okay, it's called reflex actions. Okay, is a reflex action. Reflex actions are actually unintentionally done action. We don't get aware of them and we don't know that it will happen when or where they will happen. All this is just mystery to us. Reflex actions are held by the nervous system to protect our lives. When you think of pain, your body knows that you are in danger, so it transforms the thought of pain into another process of thinking that leads to moving your hand. That type of actions are called reflex actions. You think in a specific thought, but the body merges that thought into a new thinking process to save your life. Well, reflex actions are not the only type of actions, actually. There are another type, intentionally done action. Moving your mouth to talk or closing it to stop talking, and even crossing the road. When you cross the road, your muscles are moving. This is an action that must have a parent thought. So when you want to cross the road and you move your leg muscle, you are thinking of moving your leg muscle. And the sensory neurons transform that thought into your mind into a chemical message that is carried through the neural web to the brain this time. And the brain orders motor neurons to move your muscles. So any behavior and any action is actually led by thoughts. And that's how neuroscience is treated. Now let's move to fantasy, and I'm bored of practicality and reality and science. Let's move to fantasy and fiction and mind. What about psychology? When talking about psychological viewpoint of how thoughts form actions, we have to recite what is said by the great Egyptian thinker and the global psychologist Dr. Ibrahim al-Fiqhi. In one of his books, The Positive Thinking Strategies, Ibrahim al-Fiqhi says, our actions are actually made by our thoughts. And it all begins when you decide to implement a thought into your mind, and God granted us the ability to choose whatever thoughts we want to implement. We are not forced on anything. So we choose a thought that we decided to implement, and that thought that is implemented is transformed into thinking that makes you busy or makes your mind busy for a while. Then that thinking is transformed into feeling, and feelings are the fuel of humans. When you are reaching the feeling step in the thinking process, you're about to do actions. So you do action, and the action is influencing your life. That's what Ibrahim al-Fiqhi said. To give an example, to illustrate it more and clarify it better, let's say, for instance, I'm having an interview with a company manager, and he asks me the following: can you tell us who you are and how can you benefit our company? Then I have to make a response. That's an action, and I have to think of what I have to say. So I have to think, and that's the beginning. So while thinking of the words to choose to say, I decided to think in the same time spontaneously about the reaction or feeling of the response. I decided to implement negative bad thoughts about fear and about being pessimistic about that. I will not be that. I will not be God in that response. So that thinking is transformed into feeling of fear and feeling of being pessimistic about that talk or that response. Then suddenly, while repeating my words or just saying it out, I have a fear and I have a pessimistic feeling. So I just did bad. I replied as the following. For instance, I can harm your family, but so I failed and I was rejected from the company. So that influenced my life badly. What about if I chose a positive thought instead? What if I thought about self-trust and confidence? Then, while thinking of self-trust and confidence for a while, they form into feelings of self-trust and confidence. So while I'm responding to him by saying words, I just have a feeling of self-trust and confidence, so I respond as the following. I am Mazin Salama. I'm a STEM school student, and being a STEMmer, I know all about teamwork and collaboration in the classroom, and I can apply what I learned in the classroom into the practical life of the company. I can benefit you since I will apply all the collaboration and all the teamwork skills that I learned all the 3 years I learned in STEM. That's a good response, and I was actually accepted in the company. So that's how choosing thoughts, right thoughts, can make right actions and influence your life badly or negatively, and you have to choose it. For instance, I had a friend who's called Muhammad. Muhammad was actually having some problems in his new school, and he didn't want to study and to open his box. So I sat with him and knew that being not able to open the box is just a bad action as a result of a bad thought. So all what I have to do is to kick away that bad implemented thought and implement my new positive thoughts that will lead to an anticipated or predicted actions that I predicted to go studying. So I started convincing Muhammad, you can do it. You are smart and you are one of the most able person to do it, and you are the smartest I have ever known. You can do it, and just have self-trust and just go and you'll do it. And suddenly, Muhammad rushed out in order to start his first studying day in the school. What happened is that I controlled an anticipated action by controlling the thoughts. I implemented and convinced him with the right thought to make an anticipated action. Can now people like Muhammad transfer their experience with thoughts and actions into public issues that can influence all of us? Yeah, they actually can. Media is doing that. Media can convince people of belief of the disadvantages of drugs, and the drugs are awful. They are the awful experience you can ever have. By controlling themselves, they convince people with specific thoughts about disadvantages and demerits of drugs. Then all people are believing and actually are dealing with life and with drugs that are very, very bad things that must be aware. That's how media, for instance, forms our actions by controlling our thoughts. And that's what we can experience in everything in our life. Now, for any one of you who has having problem in his life, or any pitfalls or any problems in life, you are the owner. Any problem has a good side. So just think positively of the problem, of the pitfall you are suffering from, and stop thinking negatively. Instead of thinking it's a pitfall that is just keeping you away from success, think of it as a new challenge to prove yourself to life and yourself, and just pass over it, and you will just go over all your pitfalls and problems. Think positively of things, and things will just transfer for you, because God granted us the ability to choose whatever types of thoughts we want. So we can choose positive thoughts to make positive actions and to change our lives. Okay, so to sum up, I want to say, extract that small sun that's shining in your body and extract it to the other world to remove all darkness from the world. Then you can help yourself and help other people change their lives. Like what I did with my childhood when I changed my life and changed my response by changing my thoughts, and what Muhammad did when he changed the actions also. So now I think I have a little saliva in my mouth because I'm thinking of pizza. So I think that's enough. And I wish you're just God use of it, and God bless all of you. Thank you.